Howdy. Drift is one of 2 comic-only characters to get a toy so far. The other is Straxus, and don't worry, I'll get to him eventually. The alternate mode is, appropriately, a drift racer. Now, I'm no expert on cars, though some sources say this resembles a Nissan GTR. Drift continues the trend of slick-looking cars in the Classics range. He's also one of the larger deluxe cars, especially when you compare him with figures such as Reveal the Shield Jazz and Reveal the Shield Trax. While white isn't exactly eye-catching, these red markings liven things up a bit, particularly these characters, which are not Cybertronian, as some have said, but rather kanji, and it reads samurai on both sides. Google it and you'll see. I'll say this now before any of you comment on it. I don't have the blurry deco of this mould. They stopped releasing generations after the second wave. But Blur looks to be more colourful, and in this mode, the only mould difference is the lowered spoiler. But as for this version, there are no real problems with this car mode. It's just nice and solid. There's an interesting variation on the standard Autobot car transformation here. As you can see, the roof and windshield becomes the chest upside down, unlike Sunstreaker. And the doors become hip armor instead of shoulder wings as they usually do. The robot mode is very comic accurate, from the head sculpt to the huge kibble on the shoulders and legs, and well, the general aesthetics just match the original design. And despite being a fairly recent addition to G1, he fits in nicely with classic characters such as, again, Jazz and Trax. Drift comes with a whopping total of 3 swords, and if he didn't, you probably wouldn't have recognized him as a samurai. Proof of that theory? The redeco, Generations Blur. But these swords all look pretty cool, especially the biggest of the 3, which incidentally has 4 kanji moulded onto it. One source states that it reads Tenkamuso, which translates to Peerless Under Heaven. Make what you will of that. You can store the big sword on his back with the handle pointing up, as you'd expect. The smaller swords store in his hip armor, meaning, for once, the kibble actually has some use. What's really impressive is his arm articulation. Because of the way they're designed, Drift can actually hold the long sword in both hands at once. And if that wasn't enough, when you store it, you can have him reach back, as if he's about to pull it out. Posability in general is pretty good, though my biggest issue with this mould is the feet. Ignoring the transformation joints, they're essentially immobile, and while his huge lower legs make him fairly stable, if they're posed at an angle, he has no ankle joints that would help him balance out, it would help take things a step further. No pun intended. Okay, so it was intended. What of it? In this mode, the blurry Deco is just as colourful as before, but he has a different head sculpt and replaces Drift's swords with 2 guns and a sniper rifle. Now, as some of you may know, Drift has received a lot of backlash amongst the fandom. Not necessarily because of his character, which I kinda like actually, but when it comes to the comics, he just fails to live up to all of IDW's initial hype. In other words, he's a great idea, but merely an adequate execution. As for this toy, it's definitely a good one, but if you hate Drift that much, go for the blurry Deco instead. If not, I definitely recommend this one, if you can still find it in stores. The next Transformers review will be Power Core Combiner's Leadfoot with Pinpointer. But before that, something just a little bit different.